Welcome to the last session, talking session at our Security Automation Conference. It's kind of like a final finale about our conference. And we are very pleased to have Abhi Kumar, Director, Security DevOps and Automation from Royal Bank of Canada to join this fireside chat. So for people not familiar with the fireside chat, it's like a small interview. So I'm the host, Abhi is an industry expert. I will ask a bunch of questions, try to, on behalf of you, get more understanding about his insights about the security automation. All right, so let me do a quick introduction about Abhi first, then we will start the session. Abhi is responsible for driving security automation and the API strategy with RBC's global cybersecurity team. Abhi has over 17 years of experience across application development, network security, DevSecOps, and automation. Before joining RBC, Abhi worked in telecommunications and technology consulting practice. And right now, Abhi is a director of security, DevOps, and automation at Royal Bank of Canada. All right, Abhi, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so Abhi, before we even come to my question, are there anything you want to share with the audience? What do you do? What kind of things interesting about you? Maybe it's 30 seconds self-introduction, not outside this official introduction.
Well, thank you so much, Bryan. Thank you so much for having me here. Since morning, I've also attended several sessions today at the automation conference, and it's been a good learning experience for me. I'm sort of a technology geek, so I try to keep myself busy learning new things, what's happening in the market, and everything else. Secondly, family is my most important priority. So my two kids keep me busy, and right now I'm trying to teach them chess, and that's what keeps me busy right now.
Okay. Sometimes you think, how do you automate that process, right? All right. Okay, coming to our kind of, I like to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Number one, we talk. The theme of today's conference is automation. So
Yes.
I like to understand from you, what does the security automation mean to you? So when you hear these words, what does that mean?
In a very traditional sense, Brian, security automation is using machine code, low code, no code to enable, enhance a process. But for me personally, the word security automation relates to empathy. The reason it relates to empathy is, see, the bottom line is security controls are a bunch of rules, and if everybody follows it, then your organization or your business is secure. But following those rules is generally difficult, right? And that's why I keep saying empathy, and that's where I feel security automation comes in and enables people or drives them to better adopt security controls. So let's think about an example, and let's diverge away from cybersecurity for a moment. We are all from Toronto, so we all used TTC and subway at some time. Let's imagine if we were the board members of TTC. Our job is to make sure passengers are secure when they travel in the train, in our subways, and our stations are secure. And we want everybody who comes into our TTC stations to pay their ticket, and we want everybody to, we should know who is entering in, who is entering out. And when they are on the platform, we don't want them to stand very close to the train. And once they're inside the train, we want them to be either safely seated or safely standing so they don't get hurt, right? These are basic security controls. However, without designing the controls with people in mind, without empathy in mind, without thinking about how people are going to behave, we wouldn't be able to ensure people follow these rules. For example, if the ticket vending machine isn't working all the time, or it cannot accept credit card or coins or whatever it is, then people are not going to follow it. if we do not direct people to go into one alleyway to enter safely the platform, people are not going to follow it. If we do not have clear indication that stay away from the train and this is where you need to stay, people are not going to adopt it. In short, in my experience, adopting and following security rules are difficult. uh, this is where security automation comes in place. If using the power of automation, power of code, power of tooling, power of instrumentation, we enable process to be easily adopted by people, that's when we drive the organization towards a more secure path. So for me, security automation is all about empathy.
Thank you very much. This is a very unique angle to look at automation. Same question, I thought many people actually may take that from technology, AI, machine learning, or some cool new stuffs. But I really appreciate you bring this perspective of empathy and think about human, think about people. At the end of the day, it's ensure people follow the rules and also serve people, right? So this is actually starting point of all the designs. So I really appreciated that angle. All right, so from there, for today's conference, for example, we cover many areas for automation opportunities for security. For example, we have topics for GRC, governance risk compliance automation, security operation automation, IAM, identity access management operation, DevSecOps, and all those opportunities for automation. But at the end of the day, we are not dealing with each individual domain. For an organization like an enterprise, like a bank, you need to put everything together, right? So to form we usually call it a strategy or program. So I'd like to ask you, how can we put together a security automation strategy or program?
Very interesting question, Bryan. For me, security automation strategy or even security strategy is always driven by the business needs. Okay, so security strategy cannot be on a standalone. It needs to have a purpose, and that purpose is driven by organization strategy. For example, let's take the organization, any organization, small scale, mid scale, large scale, decides to use public cloud to harness the power of data because they feel like, oh, we are collecting so much data and we think we might get better sales leads or we might expand our market better or something like that, right? And an organization might decide to use public cloud or migrate to public cloud. Now, at the end of the day, what is the benefit to the organization? In this example, they want to use data to grow their market share. Correct? That is the business need. And for that, they will now adopt to public cloud. And maybe in public cloud, they will use only those services related to data analytics, data engineering, ML, or something like that. When it comes to security strategy, for me, IAM, GRC, data loss protection, vulnerability management, these are all different pieces in a Lego box. So it is all about trying to figure out which piece do you need to enable you to align with your business strategy. So in this example of an organization adopting public cloud purely for data engineering, data analytics thing, we need to understand what does success look like at the end of the day. We want to make sure the data that we are hosting in public cloud is secure. For that, we want to make sure we tag every piece of data we are hosting in public cloud, different classification. Based upon that, we will protect it. Who has access to it? For that, we need IAM and everything else. So in short, for me, the organization's end goal is what will drive the security strategy. And based upon that, we should have a very clearly defined control objective or an end state. What does success look like? We should have clearly defined it. And based upon that, we enable the controls. And this is where we use the different Lego blocks like the IAM and the GRC and everything and piece it together. Also on this, I'm a very firm believer that in order to save a $50 bill, we shouldn't spend $100, right? So what that means is security strategy should provide the expected result, and we want to make sure it aligns to the objective and not go overboard. So that's my take on how the strategy should be for security automation.
Excellent. So start with the business needs, business strategy, objective, define the objectives. And basically we will have some like a goal to achieve. And also we can measure our progress. Right? Otherwise we just random through money to different program. And of course, each individual may technology like a wise, maybe very cool, right? So you adopt things, but at the end of the day, what does that do for your business? So that's very important. And you also mentioned that from a strategy about saving cost, right? So the cost not only in one area, but also you save here, but you may cost you a lot on the other. So you need to have an overview, like a high level strategy to balance that. So that's very valuable. All right. So let's say we come up with our strategy, right? So this automation strategy, we define our objectives. So can you share with some insights about what kind of common challenges when you start the automating security? So what kind of roadblocks commonly you will experience? And so we can preview that, and we try to put some measurement to prevent that from happening.
So in terms of challenges, there are two key challenges which comes to my mind. Challenge number one is, I think agility is the keyword right now. By agility, I'm not talking about the Scrum or the Kanban. It's just that the business needs are changing so much, and it is so relevant for the business to adhere to changing expectations and everything else. So if the business needs changes, then your security needs changes. So over the last, just if we look over the last 2 years, we had COVID, and every organization had to adopt really quick to remote working. That was the need of the hour. And then more, there was a higher growth of digital adoption. And now that the COVID is done, then we have this hybrid working, which is the need of the hour as well. So where I'm heading towards is agility is the mantra, and probably it is going to continue for the next decade or so. When it comes to agility, automation needs to enable the organization to be agile. If automation in turn becomes a roadblock, then it's an issue. And that's one of the most biggest challenges I find within security automation, wherein sometimes automation does not benefit the organization, but sort of an hindrance. So let's look at a few examples on how does this happen. Yeah. I've seen or come across situations wherein we have a very tightly coupled design. Okay, and tightly coupled design prevents you from changing quickly. When needs changes, then if you need like 6 months and year to adopt to the new needs, it's a challenge. So some of the trends that we are seeing is tightly coupled design. And also another trend we see is in the name of security, sometimes our technology stack just grows so big, so complex in such a short time. And we keep adding new technology stack. Oh, look, we read this DevOps tool to do this, so let's bring it in. Everybody is now adopting Kanban, Scrum, and let's all adopt the process. And usually when we adopt and grow our technology stack and process so quickly without a good support model, then it's a mixed match of things like that, which again impacts the agility angle there. And the final thing is a lack of optimization mindset. Now, what optimization mindset for me is, how can I do more with less? And when people do not have that mindset, again, agility is a issue. So anyway, to recap, one of the biggest challenges I find is some of this bad practices, like a tightly coupled design and a too large and too complicated technology stack, which makes it difficult, prevents quicker adoption and quicker rollout of feature. That is challenge number one for security automation. Challenge number two, in my opinion, is attrition right now within the industry. So again, the more digitalization happens within our industry, and the more companies adopt to digitalization, there's more opportunities. So there's a more turnover of our staff and everything else. So again, I think every organization should look towards employee retention strategy, and ensure that they could do whatever it is possible to make sure that the employees are retained. And I believe so these are two biggest challenges for security automation adoption at this moment.
Very good. So the number one really is to talk about the agility, the way how fast you can adapt to the change, and to be flexible about, of course, you still need to follow all the best practice, but how can you kind of quickly to adapt to the new changes, like, for example, like COVID-19, all of a sudden everybody working from home. How do I, within like a couple of weeks, to make sure the whole organization is ready for that? And the second part I really appreciate you mentioned that is a talent, right? So talent shortage. So at the end of the day, it sounds like automation for a large part is kind of try to reduce the workload from people, but you need people to work on the automation, the best people to design the process, design the whole thing, right? So, and the competition among all the companies are really to looking for, okay, what's the best talent? What can we get? So you really need to take care of your people, and in a way, take care of automation.
True.
Right.
True.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about the industry trends about automation. So automation is a very dynamic field, and every day probably there are new things coming up and a new concept. So in your opinion, where the industry is going, what kind of cool things or new things will come along the road?
So for me, the way how I look at trend, at least for me personally, is some of the good practices, some of the most successful firms have adopted, and through which even we can all learn. And no matter whether we are a small scale, mid scale, or a large scale firm, some of the trends which drive better productivity, everything is what I'm so keen on. So when I look at some of those industry trends, uh, something which very closely aligns with me, again going back to the concept of agility, is some of the really some of the best practices when it comes to security automation. The saying very aligns to me, like, if we don't measure it, then we can't improve it, right? So again, when it comes to agility, we talked about agility. So security automation is all about enabling the business to meet business needs and deliver quickly. So then it also is very critical from a trend perspective on security automation teams ensuring that they are measuring the right metrics. What I mean by that is, how quickly can you roll out features? What percentage of features that you roll out end up with an error? How quickly can you identify errors? How quickly can you overcome from a security incident, right? These are some of the metrics, uh, if organizations think about and measure, I think is gonna be very fruitful. So again, when I talk to industry expert and some of the people who have successfully led or adopted security automation, I'm always fascinated by what do they measure their success as, and then these are some of the things that they adopt. The second key trend I see among teams which have adopted this is they always focus on reducing technical debt. Again, by technical debt, I'm not only talking about teams building custom code. Even if we are building and managing playbooks on a sim or a SOAR or whatever it is, or using some tool and instrumentation, ensuring that we have minimal technical debt enables us to adopt quicker, right? And drive it quick. So um, we need to make it a practice to always look at an opportunity to reduce technical debt, maintain our technical hygiene as much as possible, whether it is running the latest OS or whatever it is. We all use different mechanisms to track technical debt. The third thing is, again, it's sort of used as a cool word, and saying we need to adopt to DevOps principles and SRE principles. But for me, when it comes to DevOps and SRE, more than using some really cool tool out there or anything, I think it is more of a culture and a mindset issue. So trend number 3 for me is companies really adopting a cultural mindset of DevOps. How quickly can we ship a product out to the market? How safely can we do it? How can we do it without errors? And again, SRE is like, how do we ensure that whatever we ship out is stable enough and resilient enough, right? It's that mindset. It's not using a particular tool. It's not using I don't know, Jira or whatever it is, but it's more of that mindset, always constantly looking out for that opportunity. Trend number 4 is how can we shift left when it comes to security? How can we embed security controls as part of deployment pipelines for custom code so that security is not an afterthought? It is something that we make it as a practice. And this goes back to my first example of empathy, right? So again, when we talk about embedding security controls as part of the pipeline, having a robust CI/CD pipeline, maintaining a good software supply chain hygiene is super key. And especially when we look at some of the recent zero-day vulnerabilities, those all occurred primarily because they were able to compromise your software supply chain ecosystem, right? So again, maintaining your hygiene out there is important. And the final trend for me, when I look at some of the best practices, and you might find it funny, is good security automation teams always document well. So there is no compromise to that, right? So the better the documentation is, better you are aligned to good practices, you're sharing your knowledge, it makes it easier for people to adopt and learn. So those are some of the trends that I see when it comes to good security automation best practices.
Very cool. I can resonate a lot because from I have my development background, so I can resonate with your point. A lot of things related to application development kind of concept, right? Of course, in old days, security may not be a emphasized feature for the application development, but right now, like what you mentioned, we need to security by design by default. So it's become a standard requirements. So rather than just features or function requirements, but security design and security requirements, that's very important. And you also mentioned the application debt or like a architecture debt or design debt. If you carry that it will be longer term, it will become more and more difficult to fix along the road. So you'd rather fix that in the early stage as much as possible. And of course, also you mentioned the paradigm shift, right? So because it's a new world, it's a new digitalized world, hybrid world, cloud-based like architecture. So there's a lot of concept things you have to learn and get ready and use the new way of doing things rather than stay in the old paradigm, right? So that's called a shift. But really great. I think though you mentioned a lot of goodies there, and I really encourage our audience to digest and to see how to leverage that insights in your practice. All right. It's kind of actually coming very short. We're coming to our end of the fireside chat. Before we go, I'd like to ask also from talent development point of view, right? So for people interested in security or security automation, what do you think, as an experienced, established cybersecurity professional, what kind of key skills or capabilities they need to pay attention to, even in the early stage?
It's a very interesting thing. So again, out over here, my ideology on what makes a successful cybersecurity professional or a cybersecurity automation personal has changed over the years. Initially, I was very naive and I thought, oh, we need to hire people with a very strong network security background or somebody who could really code really well in Java or somebody who knows the coolest thing on AWS with a lot of certification. But right now, after years in security automation, for me, the most important thing is basic problem solving um, attitude. Okay, so the problems that we usually solve within cybersecurity are quite complicated. What I mean by that is we usually wouldn't have all the information we want. We wouldn't know what is the right way to go, um, and also we do not usually know how to go get the information we need and everything else. So it's we operate in a very abstracted world wherein information isn't rightly available. Okay, so out over here, a mindset of things are not going to be perfect, but I'll try to go figure that out. I'm going to go find the right information, and also I don't mind taking risk, calculated risk, to go figure out the right solution. Okay, having a mindset of let me do something as opposed to let me do the most right thing or the perfect thing. So it's all about mindset for me. Okay, because if I'm going to hire somebody, uh, I want to hire them based upon their attitude rather than on skill, because skill could be taught.
Mhm.
We could use it, we can put people in a team and then they could learn a skill. We could give them like a week off and say, go get an AWS certification or something
Yeah.
like that. But for me, it's that attitude, that attitude of how do you react or behave in a situation wherein you don't have all the information, and you have a very calculated methodological mindset is super key for somebody to come into cybersecurity as well as to thrive within cybersecurity.
Wonderful. Yeah, so this kind of things is really related to something we call the power skills, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just your technical skills. I really appreciate you bring that up. This is a very important. So at the end of the day, because it's not a perfect world, like what you mentioned, you don't have all the information you have. There's a lot of unknowns, complexity, and new things. So really, you're limited. Like even you have a great technical skills, but because the information is not complete, the situation is complex. You also need to work with not just by yourself. You need to work with multiple teams in a large organization. For example, the power skills actually can serve for long run rather than individuals. The individual skills you can learn, because right now you have all the opportunity to learn, right? So online, all the things, you may quickly gain some experience, skills in a week or so, but the power skills will take years to develop. And the team members really important, because at the end of the day, it's really how do you work with a team? to solve the end-to-end project, like a challenge, and finding the root cause. All those things, like what you mentioned, is really, really important. Not only just for cybersecurity, but as a future talent requirements in general.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it's coming to the end of our fireside chat. Really appreciate your input. We talk about the concept of security automation, and we also talk about the automation strategy program, some like common challenges, what's the industry trends, and also some key capabilities and skills for cybersecurity professionals. And before we wrap up, is there any last kind of a recommendation, departure advice, or recommendation to our audience from your experience? If you can give just one recommendation regarding the security automation, what do you say there?
It's constantly keeping yourself up to date with new things happening in the world. So the more we learn, the more we read, the better we are equipped to help our organization towards achieving their objective. And it is very, very relevant for anybody within the security automation space.
Excellent. So continuous learning is very important. And because every day there's new things happening, including like today, like while we are learning so many things, there will be even more things coming out. So really encourage you to join a conference like today, the network, or the future industry events. Take any opportunity to continuously improve yourself. All right, thank you very much. With that, thank you very much, Abhi. That's a wrap up for our this fireside chat. Also, the wrap up for our whole conference. Thanks again, Abhi. Really enjoy the session.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye for now. For
Bye.
people online, thank you for joining today's conference. I hope you get some valuable information and insights, or know some, make some connections. I really hope to see you in our future programs and events. Thank you. Bye for now.